Hi there. Okay, so I wish, can I, no, probably I want to kind of switch it back this way, but it's too late. So, I don't like it because when I'm looking at myself, I'm not looking at the camera, and it looks like I'm looking up at the side, but I'm not, but I'm there, but I'm not. Okay, so today, I just went, I had a chakra class. We finished up to the third chakra, and it was very interesting, as every class is very interesting. But one of the things that we were talking about that kind of struck me, we were talking about, how do I introduce this? We were talking about what the things were that we had gone through the past week, like what sort of the fallout of our last class, you know what I mean, what had happened between then and now that had to do with our third chakra. And I was talking about a conversation I had in my head with my sister, who I have had difficulty with. And as much as I love her, it's been hard because she gets angry at things. And I said, you know, like one of the things that happens is she gets angry, and most times you're like, I don't know why you're angry. I don't understand, could you tell me? And then she gets even angrier when you ask her to explain why she's angry. And one of the things that she tends to do is when she gets really angry, she starts throwing shit, looking for how, not throwing shit like physically, but emotionally. She goes for the jugular and goes for whatever she knows is going to hurt you the most. And last time we spoke, we were having an argument, and she accused me of doing that, basically. And it's just like I never knew what to say to her, other than just trying to be as calm and loving as I possibly could be, despite, like, anyway. The point is, with her anger issues, I felt very separated from her for a long time. And it's, you know, she's distanced herself from the family. She's really I don't know what's going, I don't know what's going on in her head, and obviously we don't know what's going on in anybody's head, but like I really don't understand why she has isolated herself completely from everyone who loves her. Not completely, but for the most part. And then when she does have dealings with the people that, you know, her family or whatever, she's not the most pleasant person all the time. She's just always angry. And she accuses other people of doing the things that she does. It's very projection. It's very interesting. But she gets angry in, I don't know how to kind of go about saying that what I'm trying to say. She gets angry a lot at me because I'm the only one that will actually say something to her when she's like, I'll call her on her shit. I'm the only one who will do that, and I do it in the nicest way possible, honestly. But I do. I mean, I'm not gonna let her do some of the really shitty things that she does. You know, so that's the thing. And then so her anger gets directed at me. So she's angry at me for the stuff that she's doing. It's fairly, anyway, the point that Robin made to me today, I really wish I could start this video completely over, but the point that that Robin made was that she's a mirror of me in a way, but not, oh, thanks, Parth. She's because of my anger, right? My anger, I always turn inwards. I mean, sure, I get angry, you know, whatever, outside, but generally I don't. Like, I'm very measured in my expression of it, and my anger all goes inwards, and I beat up on myself. And Robin pointed out, and I wish she were here, I should have called her and seen if she wanted to join this call, but Robin pointed out that she's like the perfect mirror of what I do to myself. And that's something I really want to explore. I wish I should have called Robin. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll talk to her tomorrow. Maybe that's something I'll talk to her tomorrow about. I don't know. But seeing my sister, I've felt so what's the word? That's the word. Just I've felt isolated from her, right? I've just felt estranged from her for a very long time, and I've kind of taken to seeing her as something like just like so apart from me now, like just we've grown so far apart, and like so far apart, and I never really I never saw us as similar at this point, with the exception of like our sense of humor and a couple of other things, but I didn't really see a parallel there. And Robin pointed it out, and she pointed out that like my sister is like basically, I mean, I guess this is my interpretation of it, my sister is basically like the voice in my head, only outside. And the progress I have made in the past week is that in my head, when I'm talking to her in my head, because we all have those conversations, right? When I'm talking to her in my head, I'm able to claim myself more, if that makes any sense. Like before, I haven't been able to just be like in my head or out loud, just to be able to say like, no, look, you know what, you're wrong, I'm a good person. That's not something, like, I'm a good person. That's not what I do. I don't get angry at people and abuse them. That's what she accused me of doing, that I was being emotionally abusive and trying to hurt her, which is what she does. So, you know what I mean? But in my head, I'm saying things in a much more measured tone, and not being afraid to assert the fact that I am a nice person. I'm a good person, and it's clear to most people around me. Like that's something that has been made very clear to me recently. I'm a good person. like it's not like there's any question about it, and other people see that, and they've let me know in a lot of different ways. A lot of different people in a lot of different ways have told me like their opinions of me, and the opinions are all good, and it's helping me to see myself from an outside perspective as opposed to listening to the shit that goes on in my head. Because the stuff that goes on in my head is not always nice, but the feedback I get from the outside is always nice. And just like mine being able to say to her, which is really boing, which is me really saying to myself, like defending myself to myself. I'm defending myself to myself and saying like, no, look, I'm a good person. Stop saying mean things. Like, stop being mean. Stop, being a bully. I mean, I guess I hadn't really thought of her that way. But the way I think of her is like, she's so hurt. There's something going on in there. I don't know what's going on, but she's so damaged, and I feel so awful for her. And yes, I'm hurt and I'm angry by her behavior, but I see how, oh wow, this just gets deeper and deeper. This is something I have to discuss with Robin on one of these calls, because this is deep. Although I did just lose it. I'm defending myself to her in my head, which is really me defending myself to myself in my head. And yeah, I just celebrated so much the point that I made in my head that I forgot the point. That's what it is. I have a lot of compassion for her, like a lot. I mean, yes, I'm angry at her. I'm pretty angry at her. And I think and it is justifiable. I don't think she's a bad person. I mean, it's frustrating. And I'm angry. I do get angry, and that's something I need to let go a little bit of. Because in being angry at her, that is a reflection of my anger at myself for beating myself up. And for, I don't know how far this analogy extends. I don't know. Let's see. I'm angry at my sister for hurting the people and just being really insensitive and really, I don't know, it's just a lot of stuff. I don't think that really plays into it. I think the point is that she gets really angry and really mean. And I, until now, have had difficulty thinking in my head, even thinking, just being like, no, look, I'm a nice person. Because, you know, I always want to see both sides of an argument. I always want, and I always approach things as in like, okay, what's my fault here? What did I do to cause the situation? And how can I remedy it? That is like always, almost, okay, I'm not going to say always because that's like a broad sweeping generalization. That's an absolute, and absolutes are not the greatest, but I can say almost always I approach a conflict situation where I'm like, what did I do to contribute to this, and how can I fix it? And I did not do anything wrong. I did not. And she's just this, I don't know what has hurt her so badly. Why her emotional immune system is in overdrive. But it's like the critic in my head, right? It's this voice that doesn't even have any rationality to it, and it's just mean, not for the sake of being mean, but mean because it's hurt, and it lashes out. And that's what I do to myself. What my sister does in the outside world is what I do to myself in the inside world. And by me being able to stand up to her in my head, in the sense of not just be like, don't, you know, stop calling her on her shit or something. It's about like me saying to her, like feeling justified and saying like, no, look, I'm nice. Like, I'm a good person, and what you're saying I am doing is not the truth. Your reaction, whatever it is you're doing and you're saying and you're thinking right now, is not attached to reality. Robin, you're coming on camera. Yes. I'm so until she agrees to come on camera, I'm going to keep talking about this. But it's an interesting thing that I'm going to be thinking about a lot forever. Because when Robin pointed this out, it was just like, what are you even talking about? Holy shit. Like, there she is. It's Robin.
Hi. You're catching me like I'm already ready. I've started to head up to bed.
Oh, me too. I'm like in bed. I'm literally on my bed.
Fantastic.
But I thought this was a good conversation to have as I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
I was thinking about what you were talking about earlier about everything in the outside world being a reflection of something. Everything in the outside world that triggers us is
everything period is in the outside world, whether it triggers us or not. It's always a reflection of our internal state. Always.
Is that in the sense of everything because of the way we're perceiving it?
Because everything gets filtered through our energy system, our own our aura, our energy filter. Everything gets filtered. That's what we see, because it only occurs in our energy field. It doesn't occur. There's nothing out there. There's nothing external, right? It only occurs in our energy field. But when we're triggered by something, that's absolutely 100% a reflection of whatever in your internal state is. It's that, like, people who trigger us are mirrors for us. They're like teachers for us. They're the people who show up to be like, I'm going to be so unconscious. I'm going to show you where your buttons are.
This is awesome. It's such an interesting concept. Well, I mean, just even thinking about everything in the outside world being filtered through our energy. I mean, it really, even when it comes to like biological perception, nothing is actually happening outside of us.
Right.
It's our consciousness is only aware of what's going on in here.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. So I was just thinking about this in terms of my sister, but in terms of anything, you were saying that if something shows up and triggers us, it's it has to do with what it's like an invitation for us
Mhm.
to work on something. Like it's
Right.
coming up and it's like, oh look, this is something I can improve.
If you get triggered, it's an amazing opportunity to heal. Like a trigger is really just someone showing you where your buttons are. What buttons get pushed at any given moment are what it's how we heal. It's how we know what our next edge is, right? So it's like when you get triggered like that, you can if you can learn to like be grateful, because it's always just an opportunity for growth, right? It's always just an opportunity for you to become more conscious, more aware, more. You get a choice in the matter as opposed to reacting to a situation. You get to actually choose who you are and how you want to show up. If you get triggered and you're just like, well, that person sucks, like you're giving your entire power away to someone or a situation, which then leaves you feeling lost or bereft or powerless, right?
Right.
As opposed to choosing in that moment to be like, shit, that really hurt me. What's here? What part of me is hurt? And what do you need to feel safe in this moment so that we can see this as this beautiful lesson, that it like this beautiful opportunity for us to heal another layer, another piece of ourselves.
That's it's such a there's like 30 things I wanted, like ideas I had to say with what you just said, so let me try and pick one of them.
Okay. Sorry. I don't mean to like talk.
No, you don't mean I there's just everything you say is so it's so interesting and it's so profound and it's so useful. It's when something okay, so when something is triggered, it is like you said, it's we have like, I mean, I'm just repeating what you said because I'm getting it in my brain. We have the choice of our reaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when something happens outside of us, I mean, this is exactly what you just said. I'm just processing it. It yeah, we can say like it's that did it. It's over there. It's not me, and I don't have any control. Or we can choose to say, actually,
What
everything
is
that's
it,
going on.
what is it in me that inspired that in them? What part of me feels that way? What part of me resonates with them? It gave them permission to do what they did because there's an energetic resonance
Right.
between us.
What did it just hit inside of me?
Exactly. Exactly.
Interesting. So one of the things that I was thinking about in terms of like, let's say with my sister, the ability for me to look at her when she's angry and just like completely lost in this rage. It's really, I just have so much compassion for her because it's just like, wow, you are suffering and I don't know why, and you're not letting me help, but wow, that's awful. I'm sorry that's how you're feeling. Of course, there's also like the whole like heart beating faster of being challenged, I want to kill her kind of thing. But
Right.
that's just
So, and
that's
I would say to you that the part of you that has that heart racing reaction is the part of you that's yours to heal. That if you can heal that part of you and not have a reaction to her, then she will stop either showing up angry for you or just stop being a part of your world in some way, right? Like you don't have control over anybody else, literally zero control over anything other than you. But so if you recognize that nothing out there is within your control at all. Byron Katie's a brilliant teacher healer. She has what she calls the work, and she has this thing where there's your work, there's their work, and then there's God's work. You can, I mean, if you spend all of your time doing their work, you're not home in your own space doing your work, right? So
right.
that's how I say you're giving away all your power, because you're in you're in their energy, you're in their field. So if it's your work is to recognize that when your heart's racing like that, when there's that fear response, there's a part of you, probably a small inner child part of you, that feels terrified, that feels powerless, that feels lost, or that you have to fix it. And that's creating the situation that you have to fix.
Right. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at her as that voice, like you were saying, like the anger that's turned inwards and she's the anger outwards, looking at her as like a complete, like that really hit home. That's like a real direct, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's true.
Right. Exactly. She's
You know what I mean?
the
Like,
external voice of the voice in your head.
that's exactly right. And the ability to have compassion for her gives me more compassion for myself, I think, too, because just knowing that she's like, honestly, kind of like, sometimes, I mean, it's sometimes a rage monster, honestly. It's like, I don't know what's setting you off, but
Well, almost always it's fear. I mean, people
yeah.
who rage,
Yeah.
I know I'm pretty intimately familiar with rage, and I can tell you it's always fear. It's always fear.
I wanted to ask you then, what, I mean, if you wouldn't mind sharing, and it's okay if you don't, what sort of, like, when you first sort of started realizing this stuff, what was one of the bigger things that you realized was a reflection of you? And like, I don't know if I'm asking that very well.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I felt, I mean, a lot of my powerlessness came from men in authority. Like I felt like I was constantly pushing up against men in authority, and I would lose almost 100% of the time because I would explode because I didn't have the ability to modulate. If that for me was, when I did some deep work, I uncovered some like real specific files about, well, I'm not good enough because I'm not a man. Like it was a deep visceral, when I uncovered that vow, I was like, fuck. It was excruciatingly painful to
Wow.
acknowledge that vow in there, but I could see how that vow absolutely colored every interaction I had with every man I ever came in contact with. I raged constantly because I was pretty adamantly sure that no, I was absolutely superior, and it really was excruciating painful. But that was really one of those, like, I sat there stunned when I uncovered that vow, and I just was like, oh. So I've spent a good number of years making peace with that and learning to I have a couple dear friends of mine who are helping me with their own. They have such a divine masculine energy that they just really are helping me heal my masculine wounding, and embrace my own feminine energy. It's been a really cool couple of years with my best friend's husband, and there's one other of my dear friends that just have helped me with that.
That is really awesome. That is really, I mean, that's a very, like, that sounds very painful. That's a very painful vow. Can we describe to people what a vow is?
So a vow is, when you're faced as a child, you're faced with sometimes situations that you're completely powerless. You're completely, and you're faced in a world where, like, your parents who are completely unconscious, your survival is dependent on you fitting into their mold, because they're the god, right? They're the so if you don't fit into their mold, you're gonna die. There's that actual, like, visceral experience. And so the vow happens was like, I will never do that because I don't ever want to feel this pain again, or I don't ever want to experience this rejection or this abandonment or this whatever, loss, abuse, whatever. And so you make this, like, energetic no. That's what a vow is. It's like I will never do that, or I will always do this. Just please make it okay, right? It's almost a desperation that happens, and it cuts off a half of your energy. And every time you make a vow, it cuts off more of your energy, so that ultimately you end up with, like, you just have this, like, you're completely in this tiny little box, even though you don't really fit in that box. But this is what I'm supposed to do to be okay, kind of thing. but
Yeah.
that's, so the vow is
Yeah.
that really that no.
That, oh, man. Yeah, that does not sound like a fun one to have. Not that they ever are, but like, no, but that sounds like a really awful one to have.
Like I said, it was also an amazing learning curve. It helped me really truly come into who I am, and like that, the whole worthiness piece and the receiving. And I've done so much work around this that it was, I'm grateful for the lessons.
Mm. Mm-hmm. If someone were to like start to become conscious of this and realize like, okay, actually have the ability, because sometimes when we get angry, well, not sometimes, all the time, right, when we get angry like that, or we lose ourselves in that emotion, we're lost. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have the ability in the moment to take a step back and say,
Not usually.
okay, yeah, like we just don't, right? We can't, it's like impossible in that moment to say, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and just be more aware of it and separate yourself. Not separate yourself, but be more aware. What would you say to someone who wants to cultivate that awareness?
I think the first thing is, it starts with a willingness to take that mirror, to look, to do the excavation, to do the dive, right? I think the willingness to sit in the discomfort.
Yes.
That you have to be willing. You also have to be curious, right? Like I feel like this spiritual work, I mean, it's certainly not for the faint of heart, but doing so with like a curiosity of like, what's here? What is this here to teach me? What am I here to learn? Gives you, I talked, one of my favorite teachers from a long time ago was Mary Morrissey. And she had this concept of a 1 degree shift, that it's not like, we're not trying to like go balls to the wall. Like, if you can just get like a 1 degree shift from that, over time, you're going to end up in a completely different place. But if you try to do it too much, too fast, the system will shut down, right? So I always encourage people to just have curiosity, have compassion for yourself, right? Really infinite compassion with yourself, to be like curious. Like, I talk to myself as the little child that I am. Like, I talk to myself and be like, hey, it's totally okay. I got you. You're safe right now. Right? I have conversations with myself all the time as a little kid, as I would talk to a little kid, with like that compassion of like, I get that you were scared. You don't have to be scared right now. You're totally okay. And it's like 1 degree shifts, 1 degree shifts over time. Curiosity, compassion, willingness to sit and stay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's I think the most counterintuitive for people is the sitting in discomfort. Like, we're like, pain, no,
do anything we can to avoid the pain. Yeah, and we get numbed out. That's what this is, society. We were completely numbed out. That was a truth for a lot of us for a really long time.
Yeah. But what you're saying about talking to yourself as though you were a small child, or talking to that part of you that is still a small child, sometimes I can see, like, I see that 100% that's very useful in what we should be doing. But at the same time, the feeling is like I don't, maybe for me it would be like an I don't deserve it kind of thing, but for another person maybe it'd be like I feel silly, that kind of stuff. So that could be a barrier.
It certainly could be, but that's why I say it starts with a willingness. It starts with a willingness and curiosity, right? I spent a lot of years trying to figure out what was broken with me, right? I just tell me what's wrong with me and I'll fix it. Just tell me what's wrong with me. Just tell me, right? I spent a long time trying to fix what was broken. It took me a really long time to get to the place where I can say there was nothing broken about me, but I kept learning, I kept growing, I kept studying, and all these teachers kept saying, "You're enough as is. You're divine. This is who you are." So I just was like, okay, well maybe they do know what they're talking about. Maybe maybe all of these teachers and healers and gurus and everybody, so I started with the premise of like, maybe I'm not broken. And I was willing to sit in the inquiry of that
Yes.
in order to get to the place where I could believe it. But I didn't believe it at first. I was like, that's true for other people, but not me.
Totally. For other people, absolutely.
Right.
100%.
So,
Every other person on the planet, not me.
right. But it was my willingness to sit in that and say, okay, maybe there's something to this that gave me the potential. But sitting it's excruciating to sit.
It's awful. It is awful. It hurts. You sweat. You cry.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I think, yeah, that's obviously definitely the thing that people have the most aversion to and don't really get, that they have to actually sit through it.
Yep.
And allow themselves to experience it.
I have one of my favorite teachers is Bob Lancer, and he kicked my ass on the regular. And I never left a session with his that I wasn't sideways crying, like sideways heaving sob. And it was always about just feel your feelings, just feel your feelings, just sit and stay and feel your feelings. And I was,
feel your feelings. That's the worst.
And also the best.
Also the best.
Because that's your divine guidance. That's your way through, is to feel. If it feels right, it's easy and simple and fun. If it doesn't feel right, that is your indication that there's work to be done, that there's something here, that it's either an opportunity for growth or an opportunity for joy, period.
Right, exactly. Like we were talking about with triggers. It's an
right.
opportunity. Something is always happening for us, not to us, right?
Exactly. 100% always for us.
Always.
Like all of our whole life. Nothing has ever happened to you. Nothing has ever happened to you.
It's amazing how it's amazing how much deeper your understanding of these simple truths that you're first like, okay, I get that. And then like a little time passes and you're like, no, that is really right. And then a little more time passes, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, right?
Damn, that's true.
Exactly. Yeah, no.
Yeah, so that's cool. So I don't want to keep you up too late, and I think that's a good note to like say goodnight on. Like, hey, it all happens for you. If you're feeling triggered, bring curiosity and willingness to explore.
Yep.
That's cool.
Sit and fucking stay.
Just sit and stay.
That was my mantra for a really long time.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Sit and fucking stay. Just stay.
Just stay. Just stay in it. It gets better, and it's not as bad as you think it is, and it never lasts as long as you think it will.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Not to keep going, but you think it's gonna last forever.
Right.
But then when you sit in it, you realize it doesn't. So if you just let
terrible.
yourself feel it, it'll go away. But when you don't let yourself feel it, it stays forever.
And it runs your life.
And it runs your life. On that note, everybody out there in Facebook land, thank you so much. And thank you, Robert. Robert?
Robert?
Robert? What's your name now, Robert?
Okay, whatever. I go by many names. My favorite is the Iron Goddess of Mercy. That's the one that's mine for.
That is my favorite too. The Iron Goddess of Mercy. I'm gonna that is how I think of you. So that in the bubble thing.
Right. Rainbow bubble.
Rainbow bubble.
Yep.
Well, I have much gratitude for you. Thank you so much. I'll let you go to sleep. Go to sleep. And that's it, I guess.
Right. My pleasure.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you, Robin. And I'm going to remind all of you out there that you can be grateful for whatever happens to you. So you can always choose to have a grateful day.